Hello, everyone. My name is Fiona O'Flynn, and I am a student in Professor Dim's public history class here in Skidmore College. Today, we're going to be exploring the history of vegetarianism, starting in the 19th century United Kingdom, going all the way to Saratoga Springs, New York in the 21st century. It's a history that goes way deeper than what most people think. In 1833, Martha Brotherton published Vegetable Cookery, the first English language vegetarian cookbook. And what surprised me while reading it is how intense, passionate, and morally driven early vegetarian beliefs actually were. So today, you're going to come with me as we explore this history and ask around Skidmore College what students today think vegetarianism is, and then compare those beliefs to the first British vegetarians. To start things off, let's go around campus and ask some fellow students, what comes to mind when you hear the word vegetarian?
I think generally of just people who don't eat meat.
People who don't eat meat.
Specifically, they eat vegetables.
Like classic salad, mixed salad. There's all sorts of salads that you can eat.
It's interesting because most of us think of vegetarianism today as a kind of lifestyle, simply a diet consisting of avoiding meat and eating a lot of vegetables. But in the early 1800s in the United Kingdom, it was something much, much bigger. The earliest organized vegetarian movement in Britain started with the Bible Christian Church in the early 1800s. For them, avoiding meat wasn't just a diet, it was a moral and spiritual commitment. One of the most striking lines from Vegetable Cookery says, abstaining from meat would entirely abolish that greatest of all curses, war, for those who are so conscientious as to not kill animals will never murder human beings. This tells us a lot. They believe compassion was something you practice across all living beings and in all aspects of life, including your diet. If killing an animal hardened the heart, then avoiding meat softened it to the point where violence between humans would disappear completely. It sounds dramatic, but it shows how deeply they connected diet with moral character and peace. And they also saw eating meat as both physically and spiritually corrupting. The introduction says, we must cease to degrade and bestialize our bodies by making them the burial places for the carcasses of innocent brute animals. This isn't just about nutrition, it's about purity. They're arguing that the human body becomes morally polluted by holding something violently killed inside of it. It shows how different their worldview was from the majority of ours today. Food wasn't fuel, it was a reflection of your soul and your commitment to God. So, after reading these beliefs, I wanted to know why people think vegetarians today choose to not eat meat, and also why people long ago might not have. Let's go ask the students of Skidmore what they think. So, Skidmore, why do you think people are vegetarian today?
Maybe because they want to save the animals and they don't want to do any harm.
Maybe because it's healthy and too much red meat can cause like heart disease or something.
Health reasons and animal cruelty.
One reason could be the environment. They don't believe in animal cruelty.
I think people also want to kind of support the environment, and that's why they're vegetarian.
When you compare these modern reasons with the thought processes from the 19th century, there are both similarities but also huge differences. So that leads me to my next question that I was not expecting anyone to get right, but let's see if anyone can. So, Skidmore, why do you think people in 19th century Britain would have chosen to be vegetarian?
I don't know.
Maybe also to save the animals.
Probably because they didn't have good preservatives and refrigeration, and meat probably went bad quickly.
Maybe because of how nasty the conditions were then.
But there might have been like a epidemic or something like that, like with pig or like cow.
Maybe just like the access to it is easier to be a vegetarian, so kind of like not by choice but by what's available to them.
Yeah, like the potato famine.
Um, if I had to guess, I would say they didn't have the best livestock.
Maybe that there isn't enough like animals in like the farm.
A lot of people assume back then that vegetarianism was about things like food access. But the early movement was surprisingly very religious, intellectual, moral, and even argumentative. That being said, despite the time or the reasoning in which someone abstains from meat, vegetarians tend to face backlash from their meat eating peers. One thing that shocked me about vegetable cookery is how aggressively it responds to critics. For example, when people pointed out that humans have canine teeth, so we must be meant to eat meat, the author replied with this: Is it right to do everything we had the power to do? Because nature has furnished man with the capacity to devour human flesh, will anyone pretend that he was made to feed on his fellow men? This argument flips the whole debate. It says just because humans can do something doesn't mean it's morally right. It's an early version of a modern ethical argument. Physical ability is not a justification for behavior. It shows that early vegetarians weren't passive. They were actively debating, challenging, and reframing what people thought was natural. While today we talk about climate change or health, back then vegetarianism was seen as part of a moral revolution, something that could reshape society. In 1833, vegetable cookery wasn't just a cookbook. It was a textbook and ultimately a religious calling for how to live a moral, nonviolent life. It taught people how to live out the values they believed in through cooking. And this movement grew. In 1847, the Vegetarian Society was founded in Manchester by the Bible Christian Church, one of the earliest official vegetarian organizations in the world. Their goals were a mix of ethical reform, religious belief, health activism, and compassion. The society quickly switched from theological based discourse to a place where any non meat eater could connect, despite the reasoning behind their choice in diet. This led the society to spread and ultimately grow into the United States. And we have that growth to thank here at Skidmore's Dining Hall. Welcome to Emily's Garden, the exclusively vegetarian station here in D Hall. Every day there's a new flavorful dish that both vegetarians and non vegetarians enjoy. There's also a very popular salad station, and when you compare these ingredients to those that are in vegetable cookery, you can see just how much the diet has changed. For example, Brotherton's recipe called Salad for Winter features things like colewort plants, endive, and a garnish of sugar. Now, salads look much different. As a vegetarian myself, this is where I get most of my protein. In my salads, I like to use some spinach, then tofu, and beans, of course, for some protein, then onions, tomatoes, and top it off with some Italian dressing. Unfortunately, unlike Martha Brotherton, I do not add sugar to my salads. But it got me curious. What would it taste like? Let's give it a try. We got some sugar in here. Let's just dump that right on in. Okay. You want to give it a look? Nice. Okay, let's try it on out. I'll get a little bite of tofu, a little bite of lettuce. Sugar coated. I thought I was going to hate it. I would never do it again, but it tastes like candy. Kind of takes away from the health aspect of it. 5 out of 10. Would not try again, though. So in the end, I asked people one more question, something that connects their everyday experience with the history we've been exploring today. What would convince you personally to try out the vegetarian diet?
Nothing.
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is money. I mean, I don't want to give up eating meat.
I don't know if anybody can convince me for that, unfortunately.
Nothing.
If people told me that it was bad for me to eat meat, I would probably go vegetarian.
I don't eat red meat already, so I've done vegetarian before and it was honestly easy. The problem is I don't get enough protein, so I need chicken and fish.
I am a vegetarian
You are, and why are you a vegetarian?
because I don't like meat.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Santa. Happy holidays. What I learned from these interviews is that most people think being a vegetarian as something that's personal, either something you do for your health or the climate, or just because you love animals, or like Santa, you don't like the taste of meat. But for early British vegetarians, it was something much bigger. They believed that your diet shaped your moral character, your soul, the fate of society, and most importantly to them, your connection to God. They believed that refusing to kill animals cultivated compassion so strong that violence between humans would end as a whole. In the language they used, describing the body as a burial place or arguing that compassion towards animals would lead to world peace shows a movement that was bold, passionate, and deeply idealistic. Comparing these historical beliefs with what students think today helped me see that the meaning of vegetarianism has changed, but also how some parts, like compassion and ethics, are still at the foundation of the movement. While the Bible Christian church may not exist and vegetarianism may look different today, its roots were powerful, moral, and visionary. And vegetable cookery is a reminder of just how strongly people once believed what you choose to eat, or rather what you choose not to eat, could change the world. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you learned something. Goodbye.